Poor people who save stay. Poor. Why you should focus on earning more, not saving on coffee. I watched my father clip coupons every Sunday morning for 37 years. He died with $12,000 in his savings account and a drawer full of unused discount codes. My mother still keeps that drawer exactly as he left it. She says it reminds her of how responsible he was. I look at it and feel something different entirely. Something that sits in my chest, like a stone. Because here's what nobody tells you when you're poor and trying to do the right thing. Saving money when you don't have money is like bailing water out of a sinking ship with a teaspoon. You might feel productive, you might feel virtuous, but you're still going down. And the worst part? The truly devastating part that keeps me up some nights? The people selling you this advice, the ones writing the articles about giving up your morning coffee, the financial gurus telling you to pack your lunch and cancel Netflix, they've never been actually poor. They've been broke, maybe. They've had a tight month. But poor? Poor is different. Poor is mathematical, and the math doesn't care about your discipline. I learned this the hardest way possible, and what I'm about to tell you will probably make you uncomfortable. It should. Because if you're watching this and you're counting pennies instead of building income streams, you're playing a game that's rigged against you from the start. And someone needs to say it out loud. Let me paint you a picture of what financial advice looks like when you're actually poor. You're making $30,000 a year. Some expert tells you to save 10%. That's $3,000 annually, $250 a month. Sounds reasonable, right? Except your rent is $1,400. Your car payment, because you need that car to get to work, is $300. Insurance is $150. Utilities are $200. Phone is $80 because you need it for work. That's $2,130 right there, and we haven't fed you yet. We haven't put gas in that car. We haven't dealt with the fact that your tooth has been hurting for 3 months, but the dentist wants $500 up front. This is where the coffee advice comes in. Stop buying that $4 latte. Make your coffee at home. Save yourself $120 a month. And you know what? That's not bad advice. It's just completely, devastatingly, almost cruelly insufficient advice. Because even if you cut out every single discretionary purchase, even if you never eat out, never go to a movie, never buy anything that isn't absolutely essential, you're still trapped in the same income bracket. You're still one car breakdown away from disaster. You're still swimming in place. And here's the thing that makes my blood boil. The people giving this advice treat it like a moral issue. Like you're poor because you lack discipline. Like wealth is just poverty plus willpower. But I need you to understand something fundamental about how money actually works in this world. And right here, before I go any further, I need you to do something for me. If this is hitting different than the usual financial advice you hear, if you're feeling that uncomfortable recognition in your gut, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel. Because what I'm about to break down is something the financial advice industry doesn't want you to understand. They make money off your guilt. They make money off you feeling like your poverty is a personal failing. And I'm about to explain exactly why that's garbage. But I need to know this message is reaching people. I need to know you're hearing this. So subscribe, and let's keep going because this gets deeper and darker than you think. The math I'm about to show you should be taught in every school, but it isn't, and there's a reason for that. So stay with me. This is where it gets real. Now let's talk about scale. This is the concept that changes everything once you understand it. Saving money doesn't scale. It has a hard ceiling. If you spend $2,000 a month and you cut that to $1,500 through extreme discipline, you've saved $6,000 a year. That's your ceiling. You physically cannot save more than you spend. But earning scales infinitely. There is no ceiling on how much you can earn. None. And this is where poor people get trapped in thinking that's fundamentally backwards. I had a friend, Michael, who was obsessed with frugality. He would drive 12 miles out of his way to save 9 cents per gallon on gas. He calculated that he saved about $6 per fill-up. He was so proud of this. I watched him do this for 2 years. Know what he didn't do? He didn't spend those same 2 hours learning a skill that could increase his income. He didn't take an online course. He didn't build a side business. He didn't network. He spent probably 4 hours a week, that's over 200 hours a year, to save maybe $600. That's $3 an hour, less than minimum wage. For 200 hours, he could have learned basic coding. He could have learned video editing. He could have learned copywriting. He could have learned sales. skills that would increase his earning potential by thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars per year, forever. But he was busy feeling virtuous about his gas savings. And this is the trap. The poverty trap isn't about money, it's about time and attention. When you're poor, you spend enormous amounts of mental energy on saving small amounts of money. That energy is finite. You're using it in the wrong place. You're optimizing the wrong variable. And every single day you do this, you fall further behind people who understand the game. Because while you're clipping coupons, someone else is building leverage. Let me tell you what happened to Michael eventually. He got laid off. That job he drove to, the one he saved $6 a week getting gas for, gone. And suddenly all those savings tactics meant nothing. Because the problem was never his spending. The problem was that he had one income stream, and it was completely out of his control. He had no skills that translated outside his specific job. He had no side income. He had no network because he'd been too busy saving money to invest time in relationships. He had $12,000 in savings, almost exactly what my father had, and it was gone in 4 months. Just gone. Rent, food, minimum payments on credit cards he had to use because $12,000 doesn't last when you have zero income. You know what would have saved Michael? A second income stream. Even a small one. Even $500 a month from freelancing, from a side business, from anything. Not only would it have given him a buffer, but it would have given him skills, confidence, and options. This is what I mean about earning versus saving. Saving is defense. Earning is offense. And you cannot win a game playing only defense, you just lose slower. And losing slower still means you lose. The finish line is the same, you just suffer longer getting there. Now here's where this gets psychological, and this is the part that messed me up for years. Saving money feels good. It feels like control. When everything in your life feels chaotic, when you're one emergency away from catastrophe, finding ways to spend less gives you a sense of power. I get it. I've been there. I've felt that little hit of dopamine from finding a great deal, from getting something on sale, from seeing the balance in my savings account tick up by $20. It's real. That feeling is real. But it's also a trap, because that good feeling, that sense of accomplishment, it satisfies the part of your brain that wants to fix your financial situation. You feel like you're doing something. You are doing something. You're just doing the wrong something. It's like you're in a burning building and you're organizing the furniture. Yes, the room looks better. Yes, you're taking action. But the building is still on fire. And while you're arranging chairs, you're not looking for the exit. The exit is income growth. The exit is scalability. The exit is learning skills that allow you to command more money in the marketplace. But that's harder. That's scarier. That requires you to risk failure. And when you're poor, you can't afford to fail, right? Except you also can't afford not to try. I want to talk about the coffee thing specifically because it's become this symbol of bad financial advice. The classic line, if you just stopped buying a $5 latte every day, you'd save $1,800 a year. And in 30 years with compound interest, that's like $50,000. First of all, if you're buying a $5 latte every single day, you're not actually poor. You're bad with money, which is different. But let's say you do cut out that coffee. Let's say you save that $1,800 a year. Okay, great. You're still making $30,000. You're still in the exact same position relative to everyone else. You haven't moved. You've just made your life slightly more miserable. Now imagine instead you spent that $5 a day, that $1,800 a year, on a skill, on courses, on books, on networking events, on building something. And over the course of 2-3 years, that investment allowed you to increase your income by $10,000 a year. Now you're making $40,000. And that gap grows every single year. That's the difference between thinking poor and thinking about wealth. Poor thinking says, how do I spend less? Wealth thinking says, how do I earn more? And I know what you're thinking. Not everyone can just earn more. Not everyone has opportunities. And you're right. It's not equal. It's not fair. But it's still true that focusing on income gives you better odds than focusing on savings. Let me give you a concrete example of what I mean by scale. Let's say you start a side hustle. Maybe you learn graphic design and you start doing logos on Fiverr. At first you're terrible. You charge $20 and it takes you 4 hours. That's $5 an hour. Worse than minimum wage. Most people quit here. They say it's not worth it. But watch what happens if you don't quit. After 10 logos, you get faster. Now it takes you 2 hours. That's $10 an hour. After 20 logos, you're pretty good. You raise your prices to $50. It takes you 90 minutes. That's $33 an hour. After 50 logos, you're excellent. You charge $200. It takes you an hour. That's $200 an hour. See what happened there? You scaled. You can't scale coupon clipping. A coupon is always worth the same amount. But a skill? A skill compounds. It gets more valuable as you get better. And the same amount of time produces radically different results. This is the math that changes everything, and it works for any skill. Writing, video editing, consulting, sales, bookkeeping, web design, coaching. The pattern is always the same. You're bad, you're slow, you lose money initially, then you get competent, then you get good, then you get expensive. But you have to start, and starting means spending time and maybe money on something with no guaranteed return. That's terrifying when you're poor. Here's what nobody tells you about being poor. It makes you risk-averse in exactly the ways that keep you poor. When you have no margin for error, you don't take chances. You don't invest in yourself. You don't try new things. You can't afford to, and that's completely rational. If you have $500 and that's your buffer between housed and homeless, you're not going to spend 100 of it on a course. You're not going to quit your job to start a business. You're not going to do anything that might jeopardize that tiny bit of security. So you stay exactly where you are. And the gap between you and people who do have margin to take risks, that gap gets wider every year. This is the real poverty trap. It's not about money, it's about options. Rich people have options. They can afford to fail. They can invest in things that might not work out. They can wait for returns. Poor people can't. So poor people make the safest possible choices, which are also the choices that guarantee they stay poor. It's not stupidity. It's not lack of discipline. It's rational response to circumstances. But rationality doesn't change the outcome. You're still stuck. So what do? How do you break out when you don't have margin to take risks? This is the question that matters, and the answer is uncomfortable. You have to create margin artificially. You have to carve out space that doesn't exist. And yes, this might mean extreme measures. It might mean living with roommates longer than you want to. It might mean driving a car that embarrasses you. It might mean working a second job temporarily, not to save money, but to create space to build something. Here's the key difference. You're not saving to accumulate. You're saving to invest in income growth. That's different. That has an endpoint. That has a strategy. Most people save indefinitely with no plan except have more money. That doesn't work. You need to save with a specific purpose. I'm going to accumulate $2,000, and then I'm going to spend it on learning copywriting, and I'm going to spend 6 months building a portfolio, and I'm going to get clients. That's a plan. That's strategic. That's how you use defense to set up offense. But it requires you to think differently about what money is for. Money isn't for security. Not when you're poor. There is no security. That's the illusion. You can have 10,000 in savings and lose it all to one medical emergency, one car accident, one layoff. Real security comes from your ability to generate income, from skills, from relationships, from assets you build. That's what you should be investing in. Not a savings account that grows at 0.5% while inflation is at 3%. You're losing money to save money. How does that make sense? I need to tell you about Maria because her story illustrates this perfectly. Maria cleaned houses. She made about $28,000 a year, worked 6 days a week, came home exhausted. She had every reason to believe she'd do this until her body gave out. And maybe she would have, except she started noticing something. Her clients, these wealthy people whose houses she cleaned, they all had something in common. They talked about their businesses constantly, on the phone, in their home offices to each other. And Maria, she listened. She started understanding how they thought about money, how they talked about revenue and expenses and margins, how they solved problems. And she realized, I could do what they do. Not all of it, not right away, but pieces of it. So she started small. She asked one client, someone she'd built trust with, if she needed help organizing paperwork. The client said yes, paid her $20 an hour, which was more than the $15 she made cleaning. So Maria did that, and she was good at it, so she asked another client, and another. Within 18 months, she had completely transitioned from cleaning houses to being a virtual assistant for small business owners. She made $60,000 the second year, not because she saved harder, not because she cut expenses, because she learned what wealthy people knew and she applied it. She scaled her time differently. She didn't work harder. She worked at things that paid more per hour. This is the pattern you need to understand. The skills that pay well are not harder than the skills that pay poorly. They're just different. And usually, they're more about thinking than doing. Maria didn't get smarter. She didn't go to college. She just learned skills that the market values more highly. Organizing information, managing schedules, communicating clearly, basic bookkeeping. These aren't hard skills. They're just different from scrubbing toilets. But one pays $15 an hour and one pays $40. That's the game. Figure out what skills the market rewards. Learn those skills. Sell those skills. It sounds simple because it is simple. It's just not easy, because it requires you to bet on yourself when you have no evidence that bet will pay off. It requires you to spend time and energy and maybe money on something uncertain when certain poverty is staring you in the face. Every instinct you have tells you to hold tight to what you have. But what you have isn't enough. It's never been enough. That's why you're here. That's why you're watching this. Some part of you knows that what you're doing isn't working. And you're right. It's not working. It's not going to work. And the longer you wait to change strategies, the harder it gets because you're getting older, your responsibilities are growing, your energy is depleting. There's a window. And it's closing. Now we get to the part that's really going to bother some of you. The part about domestic economy, about all those tips to save money on groceries and utilities and gas. Here's the truth. Those tips work. They're not wrong. You can absolutely reduce your grocery bill by meal planning, buying in bulk, using coupons. You can lower your electric bill by being conscious about usage. You can save on gas by combining trips. All of that is true and useful. But it's capped. If you're spending $500 a month on groceries and you optimize perfectly, maybe you get that down to $350. You saved $1,800 a year. Great. Now what? You're still making the same amount. You're still in the same position. You've just made your life harder, because now you're spending mental energy on optimization that you could spend on growth. This is the opportunity cost nobody talks about. Yes, you saved $1,800, but what did you not do with the time and energy you spent saving it? Did you not learn a skill? Did you not build a relationship? Did you not create something? Because if someone offered you a choice, save $1,800 this year through extreme grocery discipline, or learn a skill that increases your income by $5,000 a year every year for the rest of your career, which would you choose? Obviously the skill, obviously, but people don't think of it as a choice. They think they should do both, and maybe some people can, but most people can't. Most people have limited time, limited energy, limited mental bandwidth, and this is where we reach the climax of this whole thing, the point I've been building to. You have to choose. You cannot optimize poverty and escape poverty at the same time. They require opposite mindsets. Optimizing poverty is about minimizing loss, reducing expenses, protecting what little you have. Escaping poverty is about maximizing gain, taking risks, investing in potential. They're contradictory strategies. And trying to do both means you do neither effectively. So you have to choose, and I'm telling you, choose offense, choose income growth, choose learning and building and risking, because the worst-case scenario if you fail, you're still poor, which is where you are now. But the best-case scenario, you actually get out, you actually build something, you actually change your trajectory. The math is asymmetric, the downside is capped, the upside is infinite. This is why poor people who save stay poor. Not because saving is bad, but because it's insufficient. It's a defense-only strategy in a game that requires offense to win. And every year you spend playing defense, you fall further behind people who are playing offense. The gap widens, the climb gets steeper, and eventually it becomes insurmountable. Not because you're not smart enough or disciplined enough, but because you're playing the wrong game. You're trying to save your way to wealth. And that's like trying to diet your way to being taller. The mechanism doesn't connect to the outcome. So what does this actually look like in practice? How do you shift from saving mindset to earning mindset? First, you have to get honest about your time. Track it for a week, all of it. You'll be horrified at how much time you waste. Not judgment, just truth. TV, social media scrolling, activities that produce nothing. Not rest, that's different. Rest is valuable. I mean, numbing activities, things you do to avoid thinking about your situation. That time is your seed capital. That's what you invest. Maybe it's an hour a day, maybe it's 5 hours a week. Whatever it is, you redirect it to skill acquisition. Pick one skill, just one. Something the market values, something you can get paid for. And you go deep on it for 6 months. You don't dabble. You don't sample 5 different things. You pick one and you get competent at it. While you're doing this, yes, you still need to manage your money. You still pay your bills. You still live within your means. I'm not saying be reckless. I'm saying shift your primary focus from reducing expenses to increasing income. It's a priority shift, not an either-or. And here's what happens. At first, nothing. You're learning, you're slow, you're not making money from this new skill. This is where most people quit. They say it's not working. But you're not building a side hustle. You're building a bridge. And bridges take time. After 3, 4, 6 months, you start to get traction. You get your first client, your first sale, your first proof that this works. It's not much. Maybe you made $100. But that $100 represents something different than your job income. It represents scalability. It represents something you built. And you keep going. You get better. You charge more. You get faster. And slowly, sometimes very slowly, that side income grows. And when it gets to a certain point, maybe it matches your day job, maybe it's even more, you have options. You can quit. You can negotiate. You can take risks. You have leverage. This is freedom, not the number in your savings account. Your ability to generate income, that's the asset, that's what you're building. And once you have it, once you really have it, then you can think about savings and optimization and all of that. Because now those strategies actually work. Now you have something to protect and grow. But until then? Until you have income-generating capacity, saving money is just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. It feels productive. It's not enough. So here's what I need from you. If this hit you, if you felt that recognition, that uncomfortable truth, I need you to do 3 things. Like this video so more people see it. Subscribe, because I'm going to keep talking about this stuff, the real mechanics of money that nobody else is honest about. And comment. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me your situation is different. Tell me why this won't work for you. I want to hear it. Even if you disagree, especially if you disagree, comment. Because this conversation needs to happen. We need to stop pretending that being poor is a moral failure and start treating it like the systematic trap it actually is. And we need to share strategies that actually work, not feel-good advice that keeps people stuck. So comment. Let's talk about this. Let's figure this out together. Because you deserve better than a life spent clipping coupons. You deserve to build something real, and it starts with understanding this one truth. Poor people who save stay poor not because they're not trying hard enough, but because they're trying at the wrong thing. Change what you're trying at. Change everything.